So, it's like accepting feelings, summarizing their statements, and then asking open-ended questions. Or actually, I don't always ask open-ended questions, which is contrary to motivational interviewing. I ask close-ended questions that are really obvious for the answers. Like, so what do you think if you have this paper? Would you rather, the night before the paper is due, do you want to feel like a lot of stress or less stress? And they'll be like, oh, I want to feel less stress. And then I kind of go, oh, how can we do that? And then so I mix in like close-ended questions that are really obvious with open-ended questions. So, but a lot of it's just accepting their feelings. That's really what I do and connect with them. Kind of short and sweet that way. I don't have any magic formula.
Well, let's start there for a second, Judy, because I don't know. I'm gonna be as vulnerable as I can here because I feel like this is a hard platform, the virtual coaching for me, and I'm just not someone that kids just naturally start sharing their feelings. It just doesn't happen. It's been it's just something that eventually comes out, I think, as I open up to the possibilities, but it's not instant. Mm-hmm. So how do you and for me, if the physical relationship has always been something I relied on, whether it was mannerisms, whether it was posture, whether it was just eye contact, whatever it was, or it was engaging in some kind of game in between us, like just something that was more tactile that could be used, because I'm a physical person, so a doer. Yeah, I'm a doer. So having some kind of medium to engage in always was a big deal to me. I'm not a talker, so talking wasn't always my preferred approach to building a relationship. So this really stretches that. So how do you make that initial? What are some kind of top 10, questions or feeling like questions that you can start to jump into as you start to? Because I honestly start to jump into being a coach. Almost, I know I do that too soon in this case. I don't have the right balance still between building rapport online and then jumping into screen sharing where you're going to take me through your classes. There's that line, and I'm trying to figure that one out.
David, speaking of vulnerability, I guess I'll go second here. So, I disagree, David. I think that you can jump right into a coach if it's what the client wants. I think if the client wants help with his algebra and it's session 1, and I had this whole whole thing where I was gonna talk about social media and his interests, I have a win in the relationship by doing algebra with this kid. So an example of one of my clients is he struggles with I'm so sorry about this background noise. He struggles with a ton of anxiety, and we just jumped in and I gave him some really accessible strategies that he's already using, that he's already getting benefits from, and he's thanking me, and it works so well. And now I've got him, I've got his attention, and then we'll kind of just run with something else. But replace anxiety strategies with anything. It doesn't, whatever your specialty is. If you can meet the client where they're at, then it's a win-win-win-win.
It's a good point, Matt.
Yeah.
I think, so for me, whether it's in person or remote, the very first thing I want to do with my clients are make connections. And it's the counselor in me. And when you're in a counseling relationship or in a school setting, you're not sharing personal information per se, right? But now we're in this upside down world where everything is weird. So I have kiddos kind of when they say oh, this is so weird, if it's new to them or if it's new to me, whatever they're willing to share, I'm almost meeting them. So I'm I know, isn't it so weird? Geez, my kids are stressed. Or I'll tell them a story about when I went to the grocery store, just sort of normalizing COVID and acknowledging that if that's what the issue is. Or I was so stressed out because I didn't understand what the teacher said. And I'd be like, isn't this online stuff for the birds? We go there and then I kind of reel them back in and just sort of validating their feelings, but also saying oh, I feel those feelings too.
Yep.
Because I feel like they see me more as oh, it's not just this like facade behind the screen. Like she actually has real feelings. Something's going on there too.
Mm-hmm. And so validating and normalizing.
Yep.
Those are two very good ones for sure. And whether, like you said, it could either be yourself or you have other clients that way, or you have other kids or your own kids. So you can pull from, or you have a friend do it. Like normalizing up any field always makes people when they're coming to the table with difficulties, you're like, oh, I know other people have those too. I know this person and this happens to me. I think that really does help. So those are really good points, Carrie.
Right.
And you
feel like you're still from planet Earth. That's one of the things I'll say.
So it's moderate.
We all started at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah. Carolyn, do you want to go? I think you were about to speak too.
Sure. I was just going to say I had the chance to work with one of my clients online. That was where I met him and started working with him over the summer. And now I'm working with him in person, and I just can't, I just can't even compare the two. I don't like the virtual. Although I was able I'm thinking so hard, David, about how it happened, because I did establish a relationship with him. And it happened virtually, and I'm trying, and it took a few sessions, and I'm trying to remember kind of, well, what made it click. But, and I think in this case, it was just kind of the constant encouragement, constantly being there, using those check-ins to be there more than just during the session. I think that was one thing that when I thought about it, that was one thing I put my finger on that I think helped, because I think that, and this kid was older, so I think it's different with all kids, but this kid is now a senior in high school, and I think he's probably been given up on a lot, at this point. He's still, so I feel for him, just kind of that constant presence, and that when he was late, sending him a text and reminding him and being there and not giving up on him, and and then doing that again the next time when he was late and sending him a text and being there and reminding him until finally he wasn't late anymore, and we had a relationship.
Awesome.
Ooh, I have a new thing for being late, if you guys want to hear it.
Oh, yes.
So it's a new trick. It's called, and it's an old trick, but it's with a new twist. So I start teaching ready for coaching. So I say, okay, so what do you think ready for coaching looks like? So if you are absolutely ready for this coaching session, what would you look like? Like, okay. And they're like, I'd have my computer, it'd be charged. I'd have my calendar, my agenda in front of me, my backpack would be over here. And I go, that's awesome. Now, what time would be on the clock? You were ready for coaching. And I'm like, okay, if the session's at 8, it would be like, I'd be ready at 7:55. I'm like, that's right. So I do all that kind of work. And then I have this like form that I use where I have like things that I do self-assessments for, and we check in every single time. So now I have ready for coaching on that form for anybody who's like mildly late. So then the second they show up, I go, whoa, so what's your score for ready for coaching? They're like 10. I'm like, that's right. So we have
awesome.
That little rapport going. So like, that's an easy 10 that they don't have to really do anything. And of course I do a text reminder beforehand for most of my clients if they need it. But then actually one of the skills that, like, I have one client who's now off the phone reminder. I'm like, I don't think you need any phone reminders or like, any text reminders anymore. They're like, no, I don't. Mm-hmm. That's like another like check off, like, okay, so she's a 45-year-old adult, but that's okay.
That's okay.
And the way you're describing it, they're probably all of them. And you have wonderful like kid presence with it, like, and the adults are probably like, yeah.
Totally.
I don't know what you're talking about. So that's my new finally put it on the checklist, and then they get scored, and then I get to give them positive feedback. And even if they're late, it could be like an 8 out of 10, or, and they can kind of like go for improvement.
Yeah.
Wanted
You
to
take
fill
the
that one.
elementary teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the classroom out of the elementary
Yeah.
teacher.
Cheerleader.
But I like the reminder too, and I always, I kind of get lost in that too. Is that the principle of a coach is we are the cheerleading section, right? And I think that's being the cheerleader is so important. And even in this virtual model, I think that's possible. To me, that's usually how I build the relationships over time. They know that you're not going to give up on them, even on the little things like they're late, and how you're able to affirm that struggle to be on time and help them develop those strategies. And that's pretty cool. Jeremiah, did you want to share?
Yeah, because I was struggling with that very thing. So a kid last night, Nick doesn't show up. So I give it about 5 minutes, and then I send the text, "Hey, are we meeting tonight?" And then don't hear back for like an hour. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot." It's like, "Okay, no problem." He's like, "Can we do it later on?" I'm like, "No, I'm busy tonight, but let's do tomorrow night, 6:30. Okay. And then tonight at 6:30, he's not on. If I wait till 6:35, shoot another text, "Hey, Nick, are we meeting tonight?" And like 6:50, "Oh yeah, I'm getting on now." So fly through what we can get through. And then, so I was like, "Okay, we're meeting on Sunday, right? What time are we meeting?" 10 o'clock. Okay. Put the reminder in your phone right now. Okay. Is it on repeat weekly? Because we're having these weekly sessions. So how do I determine because I don't feel with some of the kids I should, and mine are mostly college and high school, so I should be sending the email or text reminders. Like, if you're in this, be dedicated and committed to it, and how to use a phone, so put the reminder in your phone. Versus, okay, well, meet them where they're at, and that's the first step. And so then my default is go more towards directive and just be like, "Okay, take care of it right now. Put it in your phone. Make sure everything is on the alert. So it's going to alert you 15 minutes ahead of time. Make sure that it's reminding you every single week on this day at this time." So just trying to figure out that balance.
A lot of times with high schooler kids, I know it's hard if you're struggling to try to build their independence, but if it's a high school kiddo, and he's done that to me a few times, I will totally be like, "I just want to let you know I'm going to loop in mom or dad just so we make sure we're all on the same page and we can, respect each other's time." And it's usually they're like, "Oh crap." Like, they won't say that, but I know that's how they feel. And just that alone is going to force them to be there, make an effort to be there on time.
Right. Well,
I
that's
always
what I'm
do
trying
with
to
mom or dad. That's a good point.
And if you do send the Google Meet invitations,
Yep.
send the Google Meet invitations to the mom and dad. I've done that, and I've started off without doing that, but then been like, "Oh, I'll do that," and that's something I've done without even mentioning it to the kid, and it's worked.
Right.
So.
And that's something I'm trying to figure out as well, because if the parent is kind of a helicopter parent, I don't necessarily want to bring the parent in on this. Like, the one mom is somewhat of a nuisance, and
might not be the strategy for that guy.
Right.
Right. So I'm also not trying to, as I'm building a relationship, not trying to throw the kid under the bus.
Right.
Hey,
yes.
You missed. But it's also then at what point then, like, leaving work and rushing through my work day to make it home on time for this, to then have them not show up. And so then I guess kind of a operational point of view, how does that work with billing if they're not showing up? And
that's a good question.
Wasting my time.
Yeah.
I can answer this
Jeremiah,
one because
are you billing for those sessions, Jeremiah?
Oh, let Matt speak. Go ahead, Matt.
Are you billing for those sessions and then the rescheduled missed session as well?
No, I haven't been yet.
For neither of them.
Which
it's time.
Well, I bill for the one that I actually do with them, but not for the one that they completely miss.
You're leaving your office early for these appointments?
Yeah.
Oof.
Like, there's some days that, like, I've left when I'm making overtime at work You get
that's
home
rough,
for a
man.
section to have the kid
You're a better person.
forget about it.
So you know what's really cool is that I used to give a lot of forgiveness, and then I realized I wasn't doing them any service. But then there's the balance between, like you mentioned, meeting them where they are. So you want them to show up. So I always use the scaffolding process. So I get right in there, meet them where they are. If they're not showing up, they get reminders. And like sometimes it's 20 minutes before, sometimes it's a few hours before, whatever it is, they get reminders. And then I start to back off the reminders so that, and then we build in those skills. We talk about the ready for coaching skills so that now they're showing up. And then I always, if I remember, talk about the 24 hours cancellation policy. It's right there in the, oh, there's Matt. It's right in the packet. So they're signing it, they're filling it out. So you have, and I always build in the 48. So I go 24 to 48 hours at least, give me notice so that I can, and the way I put it is like, I want to make sure you don't get billed for this. So that it's like, I'm meeting them like we're buddies. I had a person not show up to a session on Wednesday, and I was like, ooh, she goes, well, let's just start next week. I go, oh, I'm like, can you make sure you find your kid? I don't want you to like get billed for this. And they're like, hold on. And she ran out, got the kid, and we finished up the session for, hi, Megan. The 15 minutes, I probably gave them a little bit extra just because I did. But if I had somebody after that, I would have shut it off. But those, and I always try to like talk about that 24 hours notice because I don't want you to get billed. Right. That's building rapport and then helping to respect your time and money.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a fine balance.
That took a long
and
time
it's
to figure out.
definitely tricky. It's definitely a good topic to talk about.
Yeah, I'll share my process. I'm probably as as bad as anybody of not billing for time that a client will skip out on. It happens about probably as much to me as anybody too. It happens because that's the industry we work in. But if I can, I'm going to take it as a problem solving skill development opportunity. So it's a lot of questions. I'll ask like 100 questions about the problem. Well, what is the problem? The problem is I'm late to your session. Well, what is that? Let's dig into it, and then let's start to triage different layers of how to manage commitments and things like that. And then you start to figure out different strategies with the client on how to make that a more regular basis. Would you like reminders from me? Oh, that'd be great. When would you like reminders from me? I'd like them, okay, let's start coming up with ways that we can build in reminders. I've always been an inquiry-based person. I just ask a lot of questions. But the other thing is I teach them how to say yes to appointments. So I show them on their calendar how to say yes to an appointment. That's a life skill. So when they say yes to the appointment, that's the first tier of they know this appointment is happening. They've agreed to it. And I'll send it to the parents. So everybody has to say yes to this appointment. Now that's just a billing way of recognizing that you now agree to this billable time that I have dedicated to coach your, whatever. And that's pretty important. So we should all be doing that as a practice because it's a safe way of creating boundaries around our time. Now, we work in an industry of time management being the issue. So if we're not coaching our client on time management, yet we're billing them for not being able to time manage. So I'll say that's kind of a problem. So we want to be like digging into that skill. Like Judy's approach is pretty cool. And, that might require its own like little mini video on how you do that, because it may have a checklist that you screen share, and that's pretty cool. How you show how to get ready for a call, and what does it look like in terms of time? What does it look like in terms of space? What does it look like in terms of materials, things like that? And I think in doing that, you build a relationship. But actually, and I think so. Megan, we started this chat by digging into my struggles, or I think even generally the struggles of building a relationship virtually, and how do you make those connections? And we deviated to a specific challenge of not only making the connections, but really managing the time, the time commitment, because I think it's easier for kids to not stick to their schedule of getting onto a Zoom because they're not driving to the office. Dad's not dropping them off. So the accountability it's much harder to navigate the appointment when all you have to do is get to your laptop and click on, which you're probably already on your laptop. You just haven't necessarily shifted between YouTube or gaming and, the appointment I have with a coach. And that's layers of complexity that is hard to coach clients through without parent input, without parent support in many ways. But I think if you make it, so we got into this, like how to develop the relationship, what are some strategies? And I think we talked about the feeler approach versus like me, I'm not a feeler. I have a very practical way of building relationships. Actually, as a teacher, it's the same way. I just ask a lot of, I'm in the middle of class, and every day a class starts, and I tell the students a story, and I start with a question. I say, guess what I saw on my run this morning? And now it's like day 6, and I tell my students about my 6 a.m. run. And I start off by just the dumbest topic in the world. But to me, like, I'm not a feeler. I'm not going to go around and ask them how they're feeling. That's a hard thing for me to do. But I will break them down just by sharing my personality. So this is like day 6 of telling them my stupid run in the morning stories around. And now I have kids being like, oh, I know what you saw. You saw grass. Now I have the kids just chiming in at 7:55 in the morning when they're still tired. High schoolers, they're actually participating in a pathetic classroom discussion on absolutely something as mundane as Dr. Murphy's morning run. But so I think I'm trying to make it work based on like my personality style, but it's super hard. I'm like Carolyn. I need people in front of me, I think, to be most effective. At least that's how I feel, and that's.
But I mean, I feel like you can do that with your virtual, like that's brilliant. I mean, that's like what you do is like, sometimes I'll be like, you don't even want to know what I was just doing before we signed on, something like that. And it's like, yes, I'm like, it was crazy. Just guess, and I'm not sharing anything crazy personal, but like, like you said, well, I tripped on my face while I was on a run, like that kind of thing. And then it just leads into being like silly and fun and just back and forth where before you know it, you actually are digging into feelings a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing it. You just don't know you're doing it.
Megan, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How's everyone else? Sorry for being late. I was finishing with a client, and it's just when we meet because she's in college, so it's late night and we do our thing. And it was funny that you guys are talking about kind of the challenges with remote coaching, because like what we've run into is that, especially in the half-hour section, there have been so many times where the internet connectivity is just not there. On this girl's campus specifically, that the poor girl, and it's not, at first I was like, oh, she's stringing me along, and like she just forgot, and now she's late. Like she'll sit there and she'll call me on the phone and talk me through her like trying to troubleshoot her internet. But every time, so she'll take calls from like outside, in the front of her dorm, in the library, in the dining, anywhere she can get it. But then I'm like, only a half hour, and like 15 minutes into it, you're finally like up there, and I'm like, oh, we have so much that we just want to like verbally unload and like talk. So we sometimes run over, but she's so that's one of the challenges I found with like the remote sessions, are like things can be unpredictable. And then or like before that client, I was meeting with another kid, and like the whole time it was like the teacher from Charlie Brown every time he spoke, but he doesn't like turning his video on, which is like a whole other side thing I'm trying to work on now. It's really hard to have a relationship when I can't see you. And then whenever you speak, I just hear like, and I'm just, that's where I'm at right now.
Painful.
I have a kiddo like that. He'll put his video on, but he mumbles. And he's eating and he's mumbling, and then I can't hear him. And then he gets annoyed when I ask him what he said. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
don't even
we
know
have
what to do with you.
So I asked him, I was like, hey, so you did remote learning all spring and you're doing hybrid now. He's like, yeah. I was like, so did you have this problem then? Or is it Zoom versus Google Meet? And he goes, oh no, now that I'm thinking about it, I did have this problem. I think it's because I'm up in like the attic space because they have this, like space that's a loft or whatever. And he goes, and the internet's not great up there. I was like, okay, well, so if we know that's an issue, is there somewhere else in your house that maybe will be a better spot for this session? He goes, oh, yeah, I guess my bedroom. I was like, yeah, I guess that would be a better spot. But the fact that it took us 20 minutes to come to this conclusion. But like similar to you, Judy, he was kind of annoyed that that we couldn't understand each other because of the connection. And I was like, but you knew that this is going to be a problem. So I was like, hey, also going forward on your hybrid days, you might want to do your Zoom from your bedroom as well, or like anywhere else that's not this attic. Your teachers would appreciate it.
Yep.
But yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So many things you never thought you would learn. Like it's just.
Oh, no, I know. So I think so. I'm going to pivot and I'm going to actually try to get into some stuff that might be helpful as like we think of the tools. This is super helpful, by the way. I could spend the next 20 minutes just listening to you guys share out stuff because this is so what I needed. So hopefully you're not feeling like it's a waste of your time, but I feel like this is like help David night, which is weird because that's not my style at all. But I wanted to kind of dig into the LMS stuff for a second. Those of you that don't know what LMS stands for, it's Learning Management System. Every school in the country uses one. If you're out here in this part of the world, there's a few different LMS systems that our kids are using. They're using Google Classroom. They're using Schoology. They're using Canvas. There's many other players like Blackboard from a college level and even a high school level as people using Blackboard. I'm going to jump into Schoology for a second and just share some best practices around what we should be doing as coaches to help our kids maximize the functionality of LMS platforms. Now you can do what I've done in the past, and that's play dumb and let your client take you on a tour of their LMS systems and learn through their eyes the levels of that platform. And I've done that multiple times. I was clueless on Canvas until one of my clients took me through there over 16 sessions. I started to learn that he's not nearly using the functionality of that product as effective as he should, and we started to develop it. So you can do it that way, but I figure in terms of a learning curve. And if you have your own, all of you, and some of you have been part of this, and I know this is something that that Megan, I think you guys use. Cohasset's using Google Classroom.
Yep, we do a mix of Google Classroom and Aspen.
Oh yeah. So Aspen has the capability to be an LMS platform. Most schools do not use it that way.
We just use it for posting grades, but like in terms, but they actually use Classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to posting grades, as we all know, that typically becomes a symptom of whether or not our kids are managing things effectively. So, however, LMS system is where I can see things real time. So from a student perspective, you guys see what I'm sharing, right? Yeah, we can.
Mm-hmm.
So most students on a platform like Canvas, like Google Classroom, or this is Schoology, there is a place where they can access a calendar. In that calendar, if the teacher is using it effectively, there is a place where they can see assignments posted with due dates. Okay, so I'm going to pretend I'm a student with multiple classes. So I have, I have U.S. history. Let's say I also have biology, I have English, and I have, Learning Center, whatever. So I can start to see how my life looks as it relates to short and long-term assignments. Now, in the COVID world, most assignments seem to be just collapsed on a day-to-day basis. The old days, this would have been filled out for the whole month. But I think teachers are really just trying to manage day-to-day for the most part. And high-level accountability kind of assessments aren't really played out right now. Teachers are doing quizzes. There's not like high-stakes tests right now from most students in most districts. So that's why you don't see much going on as you look at a whole month, except something in my world history class, which is a mini project, which is the wrong date, by the way. So anyways, so this is where students need to learn whether or not they're using a planner or not. This is a great place to track and manage their process. So I have students that will take a picture of this with their phone and send me what they have each night, because it's what they need to be looking at. So I want to be reinforcing the tools with them around what does it look like to be managing your LMS platforms as an effective student. Sounds good. And then with the Google Classroom, which I'm going to have Judy go into Google Classroom, and hopefully I can show you guys this, but Google Classroom is a very different platform with even cooler features. I think from a Schoology perspective, this area right here is the most powerful. This, when you click on the week view, it shows timestamps around things are due. So a lot of schools have a Wednesday assignment list that kids have to finish by a certain day or a certain time of the day. Other times you have a classwork versus homework. So this would be a homework assignment that seems to be posted for that day, but then you have classwork that seems to be posted for that class period. So students can even see what time looks like and assignments look like even into their future and even into a week view. So this is pretty cool. Any questions? Is this helpful? You guys already knew all this?
No, I didn't know. It is helpful. No, I didn't know it.
Okay. All right. So that was like a power moment of just me just talking and trying to get through some stuff that I felt would be helpful. Other than that, there's a lot more to Schoology, but when it comes to coaching, I think hanging out here is showing them how you can color code their assignments. They can use this. They can color code each class. It's really cool. It's just really cool. So, and then if they wanted to take you on a deeper tour, then they can go into their classes and they can show you. I've shown kids how to order their classes. So you can actually go into here and you can actually teach them how to order their classes in the periods of the day. And now they're like, whoa, I can do that? Yep, you can. And by the way, you can delete all of the middle school classes that you no longer attend because you're now in high school. Like there's just little things. It's kind of cool. They really appreciate that because they're like, oh, I didn't know that. No one's ever taught me that. It's just true. And then you can dig into each class. Like, so show me how your teacher organizes materials on the class. It's like, oh, well, this teacher does it this way. And then they say, okay, cool. Now give me a tour of the next class. Well, this teacher does it this way. Well, where are the assignments posted? All right, where's the homework posted? Well, what if you have to ask a question? How do you know how to get in touch with your teacher? And so things like that. And this is a typical view of what they would see. These are the assignments coming up, and they'll show up in the calendar, which is why I go straight to the calendar. And some students, all they know is how to go to here, and they don't actually know that they can click on the calendar and see everything and submit work straight from the calendar view. It's pretty cool.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
So you've been a big supporter also of daily planners, and it seems like it's case by case. But for high school, I mean, for college students, I use Google Calendar across the board. But you know, for high school kids and maybe even middle school kids platform,
yeah.
You know, are they tracking assignments using this, or are we also using a planner? I mean, how can we? Because I hate to have it, you want to have one system. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have found that Canvas, I had a student using Canvas, and he just, every time I talk about a planner, he'd shut me up because Canvas was so well developed and simple that it was like idiot proof. I mean, you had to work your butt off to screw it up. Canvas is probably one of the cleanest systems, LMS platforms I've seen. And I can't show you because I don't have access to one right now. But so if they can show you, if they can take you through the functionality and how they can use it to navigate, and this is where I want to show, this is actually a great transition to get into Google Classroom if we can flip for a second. And if Judy can share, Google Classroom has some cool features that a apprehensive student that won't use a planner, Google Classroom also has features on it that if a student is using the features, that's a kind of a big if. if a teacher is using the features that allows students to see assignments posted on their calendar and see assignment due dates, then in theory, they could navigate most of their classes, if not all of them, without using a planner day to day.
Right.
But I think, so that's true. It's really debatable and appropriately debatable. So I'm always debating it. I'm always digging into the pros and cons. I'm always digging into the justification for using one tool versus another, especially as they get into high school, because I think it's empowering to them to pick a tool, argue its use and effectiveness, and then use it. I always say, it doesn't matter the tool. It just matters whether or not you consistently use it.
Right. Right.
I'll help debate which one fits you the best.
I wish teachers consistently, did those long-term assignments. It seemed, for us, obviously it's a, without question, but
yeah. Yeah. So Judy jumped into the coolest feature. So there's the area called to do, and she's like already into it.
Yeah, I'm just playing around. I never play around on my own Google Classroom. I always have students show me. So this is actually really helpful. I do have a hard stop at 8 because I have a session and it's a first time client. So I apologize.
Whoa. Okay. So this area is a really cool. I've had a kiddo for 2 years. He's been using Google Classroom. He refuses to use a planner, and it's always a battle every time. And I dug into this because now all of his teachers are using Google Classroom, and they're using the full functionality for the first time in 2 years. So now we can start to grab this kind of view and say, look, every teacher is posting assignments right here. Let's look at the pros and cons. No, this won't work. Well, before we jump into the, this won't work statements, let's prove that it won't work. And let's just dig into why it might work. And then we can start to use that argument to say, here's why it won't. And so we just started to go into it. And I said, well, what happens when you miss an assignment? What does that look like? So he clicked on here, and there's a few missed assignments. And then he's like, wait a minute, I submitted that. And so we opened it up and we realized that it was blank. Like he submitted a blank answer, like there was nothing there. So it gave us these 3 different categories to manage, the tasks of being a student. And it's really task management. It's not time management. It's not planning. It's just managing the tasks related to being a student each day. But super effective if they're setting due dates. They have to go into the assignment and create a due date. If they do, then you can help your student use this feature to just bounce in between classes and literally go right down the list of assignments that are due for that day. Pretty cool. But Matt, it is debatable. I will always say a planner is going to trump everything because a planner represents your plan.
Mm-hmm.
An LMS platform just represents the collective tasks presented by each teacher. It doesn't give into account what you want to do and when.
Right.
But at the end of the day, LMS platforms are becoming more effective because teachers are now using them holistically, when before it was piecemeal.
Yep.
I have a kiddo in Duxbury, and she's a 6th grader. One teacher is using Google Classroom. Every other teacher in the grade is using Schoology. And the parent is like, what the fuck? Why are you making my child's life more difficult by having 2 LMS systems? Right? It's like unbelievably more difficult to have to log in and out of 2 different accounts to try to be an effective 6th grader. When, by the way, 6th grade is the first time you're really accountable to grades and performance. And I'm sorry for swearing, but that's literally what he said, the parent. And it made perfect sense. It's like, yeah, why would a teacher make it more difficult? Well, because the teacher's clueless.
Teachers doing what's best for them. Yeah.
And not understanding how the system comes together in a student's view and how they can use that one LMS system to navigate all of their expectations. And that's what we want to help develop with our kiddos. So as you all know, screen sharing is super powerful. And having your client kiddos walk you through this at a college level, same game. I just got off a call with a kid at WPI. I've been meeting with him on and off for years. And we did a 1-hour session after like being off for a few months. And he had to go into his LMS system. He had to go in and show me what's going on. He had to show me his calendar. And then we had to triage something huge. And that was office hours. We just dug all the way into office hours.
David?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I have to go soon, and I just wanted to show everyone something super quick that was really helpful. For those of you who use Aspen, parents and students can go into, this is my parent account. Or if I go under family and then I go under notifications, and then I can set a threshold. So if I want to get an email notification for my students, I can hit a check mark here and a threshold. 90 seems like pretty high. But if I want to get a threshold of, let's say I want, maybe my kid has a lot of zeros, I would put a threshold of 0. So in other words, if a 0 comes through, mom and dad will get an email about the 0. Maybe like, so for my kid, I had like a 70. I wanted to see if anything came through that was like below a 70. So I put mine at a 70, and then I would get an email if somebody went below a 70. And I believe the kids can do this too. It's just, I was trying to walk one of my kids through it, and I couldn't figure it out because it's a different thing. And you can easily find how to do it with parents, but it doesn't show you on the internet, at least not in my search. But it's family and then notifications. That's wherever that was. So family and the notifications, and that's how you find get Aspen.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Never knew.
super cool, Judy.
Yeah, that's just what it's weird. It's like a lot of people don't know about that one.
Yeah.
But it is helpful. So I do have to go. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted everybody to see that.
I have one last
Thank you.
thing.
That's awesome.
Hi, Judy. And have you guys ever heard of Art Hub? Let me share this out. So as I've been trying to teach myself how to engage with my kiddos virtually through some kind of activity, I've been doing, like, if I have like a moment with them, we literally.
Oh, I didn't hear what you said. I use this all the time and I love it.
Oh, so good. It is so good.
Love it.
I don't care. Sorry. It is so good.
It basically saved my life, when I was first figuring out how to teach virtually. Yeah.
And you can just do this with your client as like a total unplugged, or not unplugged, but chill, just have some fun drawing, and then you can share out your pictures, pick a topic. I started doing that. I did it once at the beginning, just with a kiddo that I hadn't connected with in a long time, and we were just reconnecting. And I didn't really want to, I didn't want to have a heavy start, so we just had some fun with that right away. And then wrapping up with that.
It's called Art Hub.
It was pretty cool. So, anyways,
David, it's called Art Hub.
Yeah, you can Google it. It's Art.
It's Art Hub for Kids.
Art for Kids Hub.
Art Hub.
Really?
Yeah, Art for Kids Hub.
Oh, is it?
That doesn't sound dumb.
No, it's hard to say. Art for Kids Hub.
And you can draw anything, like Captain Underpants, like the Ghostbusters character, like the Sorting Hat from Harry Potter, and you can search them. So you can totally do it right up whatever the kids' interests are. They have everything.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool. Yeah, so
I wish I had some of my drawings here to show you guys, but I must have cleaned them all up.
I'm not going to show you my drawings.
David, thanks for sharing that.
Of course, Matt. Yes. So on that note, gang, thanks for taking time. Megan, thanks for getting a few minutes with us. Appreciate it. Great seeing you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yeah. And
Megan,
let's all just stay in touch, okay?
Sounds
When's the
good.
company party?
What?
Can't wait for that barbecue.
Oh,
Yeah.
Can't wait. COVID barbecue. Everyone stay 6 feet apart.
Sounds good. You're good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeremiah, you want to talk about that kiddo that is coming your way?
Yeah, that's fine.